The Starkville Board of Alderman is brought to you by Oktibbeha County Hospital, devoted to your health.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in health care.
Present, the regular meeting of the Starkville Mayor and Board of Alderman for March 1, 2005 is called to order. In just a moment, I'm going to ask that we all stand together for a silent invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Before we pray, I want to mention two prayer requests. One is for Elizabeth Davis Williams, daughter of Alderman Frank Davis and his wife Carol McReynolds Davis, as she entered the Oktibbeha County Hospital to be monitored throughout the night and to be induced into labor tomorrow. And I believe that process may have already begun.
Started, I think.
March
Naturally.
2nd, to give birth to her daughter Mallory Ann Williams. And we pray for both Elizabeth and her husband Stephen Williams. And I would also ask prayer for a member of our, another member of our city family. The electric department regrets the loss of Mr. Walter Sansing, the meter superintendent, who passed away Saturday evening. Funeral services are tomorrow at 10 o'clock at Memorial Funeral Home in Columbus, and the electric department doors will be closed from 9 to 1 o'clock tomorrow. There will be someone there to answer the telephone, and there will be an emergency crew in case of any emergencies arise. But I would ask that as we pray that we keep these two objects of prayer in our mind. Let's stand together, please. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I call your attention to the printed agenda and to several items that have come to our attention since the agenda was prepared, and ask that you accept the agenda with certain amendments. The first amendment being that we request that Roman numeral 9A2, appointment to the Board of Trustees of the Starkville Separate School District, be moved to immediately following general comments from the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Ask under Police Department, Roman numeral 8D, that to request authorization for Detective Bill Lott to travel out of state on a felony investigation. Under the Mayor's Office, Roman numeral 9, General Administration, number 7, request authorization to submit grant application for construction of 10 T hangars at Bryan Field Airport to Mississippi Department of Transportation. Recommend authorization of contract with Sam Oswalt and Sons for construction of parking lot, and recommend dating of construction beginning and completion on Booth property from closing of purchase on second parcel. I'd be glad to elaborate on any of those if they're not sufficiently clear for you to act on as an agenda item. I would ask for approval of the agenda with these amendments.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in
Just one
favor?
thing, where's our clerk?
She is making some extra packet, and I have turned the recorder on as she requested. She'll be here momentarily. Did we need a vote? Ask for a vote on the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimously approved. We will now entertain, we will ask for approval of minutes of February 1, 2005. You have those in your packet. I believe Alderman Davis,
Right.
Frank Davis, you have reviewed those.
I have, sir, and I have made my suggestions, and I so move that we accept the February 1st minutes.
I second.
Davis and Zeta. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I believe that's unanimous. We will now entertain comments from the members of the board. Anyone who,
I do have one
all right.
comment. The committee that the board assigned to come up with a new contract between the city of Starkville Fire Department and MSU concerning the fire contract with MSU. We have met twice, and those meetings were Alderman Lee Beck, Sumner Davis, Chief Grantham, and myself. We have a draft that we're working on. We feel like that we'll have that completed, and we'll be ready for action by the board by the March 15th meeting. And then the board at that time, if they accept it, then we'll ask for permission to start negotiations with the university.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the board?
Mayor, I'd like to put my comments under section 5 when it's citizens' involvement as so listed.
All right. We then have, according to the amended agenda, come to the place for consideration of appointment of a member to the Board of Trustees of the Starkville Separate School District. We have two applicants, both of which I believe are here this evening. Dr. Walter Taylor is incumbent. I would ask Dr. Taylor if you would come to the table first and address the board and express your interest in remaining on the Starkville Separate School Board of Trustees, and any comments you wish to make.
This is, I wish to, once again, I made an application again to serve on the school board for Starkville. I think I know the strengths and weaknesses of the school district. I know the goals of our superintendent, and I would like to help him to achieve those goals. He desires for us to have a level 5 school district, and I want to help him do that.
All right. Any members of the board that wish to address any questions to Dr. Taylor?
Yes,
Taylor?
sir, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Taylor, I think I asked this question 5 years ago when you came for the board. I think you testified earlier that you do have a grandchild or a child in the Starkville School District.
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, and but have you had any share any time in the Starkville school system?
Yes, I have. My daughter attended the school district here.
And she always attended the public school system?
Yes, sir.
And
She did.
Did she ever any time attend any non-public school?
No, sir.
And I've heard a lot of positive comments about your leadership, and we want to commend you for your service as a member of the board and as president of the board, and we want to thank you for your leadership. And I've heard that from a lot of administrators and others in the community.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the question to Dr. Taylor? Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We appreciate your for coming, and thank you for your interest. Mr. Feng, I believe, would you introduce yourself to the board, please, sir, and tell us about your interest in being a member of the Starkville Separate School District Board of Trustees?
Yes, sir. My name is Eric Feng, and I've been living in Starkville for over 20 years. Basically, I think this is my home now, and I have 2 children, and they both were born here. Probably most of y'all knows I'm from different kind of background, and I'm originally from Taiwan. So I exposed 2 different kind of cultures. And I think education, especially to us, is so important. And recently I read the statistics. They shows 68% of our high school graduates, they went on to college. But yet 28% of them made through sophomore year. And we have a great school system here, but we're on a falling ground. And we have to make it even better. And I think under Dr. Taylor and a lot of administrators, under their supervision or under their leadership, we really have a good system here. But then at the same time, we have some weakness. And I think a person like myself from a country, the education is so important to us, I can bring some strength to the board and to the community. And I'm really honored to have the opportunity to serve the community and to see if we can even make the system even better. And I know a lot of times our funding on the education is always underfunded. But then when people start, pointing fingers and says, we don't have enough fundings, or say, our classrooms, the size is too big. I don't think that's really the issue. I think even with very limited funding, you still can do a lot of good things. I mean, even with a very limited local government support, or state or federal government support, there are tons of ideas. You can make it work. You can make those children, none of them will be left behind. And I think in my mind, I always think educator or administrator, they should treat the education kind of like a bats. You don't see people by what colors they are, or how rich they are, or what kind of gender they are. But yet you are so sensible. You have such a high sensibility. You can know what you need for these kids, or you will know what we can do for all the children. And I think that's what driven me really want to get into this service.
Thank you, sir. Anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Feng?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Mr. Feng, I noticed on your letter that you forwarded to the office of the mayor dated February 25, you indicated that you have 2 children, one age 10, the other age 15. Where does your 10-year-old attend school?
Well, my 10 years old right now, she's in Starkville Academy.
And where does your 15-year-old attend school?
15, he's a freshman at the Starkville High School.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Feng? I might ask, Mr. Feng, you seem to indicate that you have ideas for new approach. Do you have any specific thoughts that you'd like to share with this board, any specific changes that you'd like to see implemented in the school district?
Yes, sir. I think I don't expect things will change, dramatically change overnight, especially education. But some things, in my mind, I always want to see it happen. For instance, in my mind, I have this program, and I call it ASAP. Okay, it's after school academic promotion. What I try to do is, we got so many bright young people in this community, and just this year, Starkville High School, we have 4 senior students. They are qualified for the National Merit Scholars, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, the year before, we don't have that many, but it seems like more and more young people, they want to focus on their academic achievement. So this year we have 4 young people, and not just a public school, even private school, and I know some families from homeschooling, and some families from different kind of background. But those bright young people, they can help. And if we can get those young people help some of those I don't want to use the term underprivileged kids, but you know, some of the kids, they really want to learn, and maybe in the school, sometimes, you know, something hinders them, they learn. If they come to this, I guess it's a kind of like an after-school learning center, and if I can find those young people, come here to help them, kind of like a help desk, okay? They come here, oh, I got this math problem, I got this science problem, can you help me? And I don't think any of those young people, they weren't willing to offer this kind of help or service. I mean, it's part of the community service as well. And we have such a good relationship with Mississippi State. And Mississippi State, they have a wonderful education department. And a lot of those young people, they want to be educated, and they want to help out those kids. And this will be a good learning experience for those college students as well. So if I can put together, or if someone can help to put together this program, and that, I don't think we need any kind of funding. And maybe electricity, or maybe a place, and like a Green Sports Center or somewhere, if we have a place, we can host this. And after school, if those kids, they want to learn, then of course, we got to set some ground rules, what they need to follow, what kind of rules they have to follow. They come to here, and then let those young people help them. And or even some retired teachers. We got a great community here. We have so many PhDs, so many the scholars here, and I don't think anybody will refuse to help those young people. Just 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, and I think that'd be another way to help those kids if they don't get enough help from the school. I think this would be a good way to help them, and that's just one of the ideas I have in mind.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fink? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the Board of Alderman giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Full recognize it.
You recognize it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move that Dr. Walter N. Taylor be reappointed to serve a term of 5 years to the Board of Trustees of the Starkville Separate School District.
I second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor, would you raise your hand? I see a unanimous vote. Congratulations, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Fing, for your interest and for your excellent presentation. We appreciate your being here.
Mr. Mayor, could I be recognized for some
Sure.
comments? With regard to this particular process, and in fact the city's entire process for making appointments to the various boards and commissions, often I have found a misunderstanding that exists among the members of the community, and this was emphasized to me this weekend with a number of phone calls that I received. We have had, of course, tonight 2 excellent candidates for the Starkville School Board. Walter Taylor is a department head colleague of mine in the Division of Agriculture, Forestry, and Veterinary Medicine at Mississippi State University. A man who has enjoyed a good reputation among his colleagues on the school board. Eric Fing is a neighbor of mine, a man of high intellect, computer science background, but left that background into the world of business and has made a tremendous success of restaurant franchise operations. Talented children, a very talented wife, 2 good candidates. What bothers me here is that many people enter into this process expecting that there is a free and open competition and process. What has been missed in all of this discussion is that usually 99+% of the time, the Board of Alderman will reappoint the incumbent to a particular position unless there is some compelling reason not to do so. And so I simply make the point that when we advertise in the newspaper for appointment to boards and commissions, it goes without that general knowledge that 99+% of the time, the incumbent will be reappointed unless there's compelling reason to do so. And this often gives to rising expectations from others who spend time and effort on resumes, letters, phone calls of friends and neighbors to aldermen and so forth, when if they really realized that the incumbent is going to be reappointed, unless there's some compelling reason not to do so, they might decide not to enter that process. Now, that's not to discourage people, of course, from entering the process for appointment. It just needs to be done with the realization that 99+% of the time, the city's history and tradition is that the incumbent will be reappointed. And I think there's some way, Mayor, that we need to make that that situation known to our general public, and it might not lead to rising expectations and might not lead to considerable time and effort on their part when the incumbent is more likely than not to be reappointed. On a rare occasion where an incumbent chooses to retire from that spot, so to speak, or to not seek reappointment to the spot, we indeed have a free and open competition. And I'm going to be giving some thought to ways we might be able to specify the situation as it exists when we advertise for appointment to various boards and commissions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will move now to general comments. Let's see. We've had our general comments, right?
Right.
We've had our to public appearances. We appreciate Ms. Mary Scott and Ms. Lorraine Blakeney of AmSouth South Bank in Jackson to discuss the cemetery trust fund. I'll ask if you two ladies will take these chairs at the table. You have been provided with some information concerning the cemetery trust fund, and we have some extra copies here if there's any alderman who would like one of these extra copies tonight. And before you ladies begin, I would like to just make one little scrivener's correction on the sheet that is headed Oddfellow Cemetery Report of Plots Sold. There's a figure less amount paid to Mrs. MacArthur. It shows $60, and it should have shown $960. The math is based on the $960. So if you just write the 9 in, that will be corrected, and so that we'll correct that error. And then, ladies, we'll recognize you to make the presentation, tell us what the status of our county is and anything we need to know about it.
Mayor, excuse me, ladies, that addition or correction, was this to your memo in the?
It was to my memo, yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, it's not, it's to the back, on the back side of my memo.
And it's a correction specifically of what again now?
Right at night, where it has $60, less amount paid to Ms. MacArthur, right, $960, and the math is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ladies, Ms. Blakeney.
We appreciate the opportunity to come tonight, and I'm Lorraine Blakeney, and been with AmSouth for quite some time, and in the management of the cemetery trust. I work on the administration side of the trust, and Mary works in the investments, but we work as a team. And again, I just wanted to say we appreciate the opportunity to come tonight, and we will be brief in our comments, and we'll try to answer any questions that you might have. Mary will be going over the presentation if that is the desire of the board, and just give you an update of where we are at this point in time.
First off, the mayor had called our office and wanted some options on what to do with the income balance that's in the cemetery trust. I'm going to go to page 3 and just kind of do a real quick overview of what you've got in front of you. There's an accumulated balance of nearly $50,000 in income cash that hasn't been distributed, and that income is available for operations of the cemetery perpetual care. The rest of it is fully invested in half and half equities and fixed income mutual funds. The expected income produced through the whole portfolio is about $4,600. On page 4, is a history going back to 2001 of the Cemetery Trust. 2001, we started out with a balance of $189,942. We had some contributions at that time and a small distribution. And across the top there, I've got the history. I won't waste your time reading the numbers there. But over at December 31, we had a balance of $205,254. The returns for the Cemetery Trust is 1.78% for 2001, a loss of 7.5% in 2002, a gain of 8.4% in 2003, and a gain of 4.1% in 2004. And realize that 25% of the trust is invested in cash, and cash acts like a cash drag. That's why the return was not quite as bad as the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index was in 2002, nor as good as the same return for the same index in 2003. Across the bottom there, I've got some major indices listed and their returns for those respective years. Do you have any questions so far? On page 5, the mayor and I discussed what's a safe investment with a target distribution of $10,000 to $12,000 per year. And there again, we've accumulated exactly $49,334 through the several years because there's been no request for distributions of the income balance. I provided 4 options, and I'm going to go to page 7. One of the safest options that come to mind or the regular layman's mind might be a certificate of deposit. Well, certificates of deposit are FDIC insured up to $100,000 per institution per depositor, and certainly if the institution goes into insolvency, FDIC will step in and take care of the up to $100,000 of the principal and income accumulated, but it may take several months in order to get that. And so ultimately, while it is FDIC insured and in the regular investor's mind, they may think that it's absolutely safe. You do have some risk of insolvency in the institution, so and plus the funds are locked up for the term of the CD. In order to get out, there are sometimes substantial penalties, so it's an illiquid deposit. The safety issue of the certificate of deposit is that on a day-to-day basis, it's not marked to market. But if you were to inquire as to your penalty to get out of that certificate of deposit, that would change on a daily basis. So it does in fact have a differing liquid value from day to day as you approach the maturity of that certificate of deposit. So that's the first option that we explored. The second option is use U.S. Treasury securities. U.S. Treasury securities have very similar returns or yields as the certificates of deposit. There's very little difference. You could go longer. They're absolutely liquid. They can be sold today and the cash available tomorrow. As long as you hold it to maturity, you'll get your money back. The only issue is that on a month-to-month basis, when you look at the statement, there is some fluctuation in the market value. So there is some risk, but not really, because if you hold it to the maturity, you'll get your money back. And it is fully guaranteed by the U.S. government. On page 9 is the third option. We're looking at a fixed income mutual fund. I looked at a high-quality bond fund. This is an AmSouth fund. The average credit rating is AA. The yield is about 4.5%. There is an active money manager choosing the bonds as they mature and managing that. So that's the third option. On page 10, this is a very busy chart. This looks at the historical returns for different market indices going back to 1950. And during that 54-year period between 1950 and 2003, on the left side you can look at 100% stock index stock portfolio, And the highest year, the return was 53%. The lowest year was a loss of 26.5%. However, on average, the return of 100% stock in portfolio was about 12.3%. 13 of those 53 years were negative calendar years. On the right side, the far right side, if you look at 100% bonds, the highest return, I think, was like in 1984 with a positive 29.1% total return. This includes the interest produced as well as the change in the market value of the bond. The lowest, the biggest loss was a 5.14%, and usually that's going to occur in a period of rising interest rates, that the market value of a bond will go down. And we're all listening to economic outlooks that we're expecting interest rates to rise this year, so market value of bonds are going to go down somewhat. So I think that we're looking at that this year, and that's why I don't think that 100% fixed income portfolio is the right thing to do with the account. Notice that on the bonds, the difference between the 29.1 and the loss of 5% is approximately a 34% variance. Whereas on the left side with the 100% bonds, the variance is about 75%. The picture there with the 25% stocks and 75% bonds has less variance than either one of the extremes, and so this is an example of taking two assets with little can't remember the word right now, but just combining two assets so that there's less overall volatility in the portfolio. And so that's what we're recommending. We're recommending a balanced portfolio. And I'm going to skip over to page 13. I don't mean to be taking the lion's share of this meeting. To produce an income of $10,000 per year, the trust has got to produce almost 5% income if we were to invest $203,000, or as much as 6.5% if only the principal balance of $155,000 were invested. And so we don't feel like in the current interest rate environment that this is possible. And like I said before, we are expecting bond yields to increase and the market values to decrease. And we are recommending some exposure to equities as a hedge against inflation so that we can grow the portfolio and keep up with the inflation as far as the distributions annually are concerned. So our bottom line recommendation is to keep about $10,000 in cash available for distribution to the operating expenses of the cemetery, invest the remainder. Since we're in a low yield environment, it won't produce the $10,000 or $12,000 this time. It's not expected to, but at $10,000 or $12,000 per year on a $50,000 chunk of cash, this should last about 5 years. So if the portfolio is producing some income, then we can use the income balances in the account to supplement what it's producing until interest rates normalize, and certainly that would occur within 6 years. And we feel like using mutual funds is the most cost-efficient and effective way to do this, to get proper diversification. On page 15 is the allocation that we're recommending. This would be anywhere from 25 to 35% in stocks and the remainder in fixed income with some cash in money market. Through with the presentation. These are the options that I've submitted for the mayor to review, and you all got copies of it. Do you have any questions?
What is your expected percent return on your total portfolio? I see the numbers, I can't not do the math in my head.
If you look at the stock market going back to 1926, which includes the great crashes, of 1929, and also the early 40s and the early 70s and the early part of this century, the average return on the stock market is about 10.5%. Same time period with bonds, the average return is about 6%. And so we're expecting, using these numbers, I feel like are very conservative and would, you know, over the long haul, I mean, this is a perpetual care
Sure.
cemetery fund. So over the long haul, we're expecting, you know, 7.5 or 8% return, somewhere in there.
So $6,499 on an initial investment of $205,000 is that amount?
Mm-hmm.
That's expected income.
No, that's expected income, I'm sorry, yeah.
Right.
Didn't know where you were getting that number.
Say again?
Oh, I wasn't sure where you were getting that number. Is
Right.
that the expected income?
Yeah, that's the bottom line, right?
For the next 12 months.
Right. Which is a percent income of,
He's trying to come up with a percentage income.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From that expected income over the investment.
I don't have a calculator.
I don't either.
Half of 6.5 would be 3 1/4, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh.
Right.
I felt it was important for the board members to know as much as we could know about the situation with the cemetery account, since it has been somewhat of a mystery, I think, as this information has not been disseminated on a regular basis to the board members. What we have is about $150,000 in investment and about $50,000 in cash, any part of which could be withdrawn. And I described a little scenario in my memo suggesting that we keep enough in the earnings to be sure that we could cover the operational costs from year to year for the next 4 years without imposing on the general fund, and then keep the maximum remaining in investment, hoping that within 4 years from now it might earn enough to pay the $15,000 or so that's necessary each year to provide for operations. So I don't know if we need to make a decision tonight, but I wanted you to have the information. And any board members have any comment?
Mr. Mayor, I move we take this under advisement until the next meeting, at which time, if you would put that on the agenda, we will propose a decision.
Second.
Motion and second, in discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. So this will be on our agenda for the next meeting. And ladies, we thank you so much for all the trouble you've gone to provide this information and make this trip today, and for what you do in watching over our funds.
We appreciate the opportunity to come, and if there are any further questions that come up, Mayor, just please let us know.
Thank you.
Y'all have a safe trip back if you're going
Thank
back
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Adam Tell and Ms. Kristen Clemmer to discuss Old Main Music Festival. Okay, you want to share?
Thank you,
Kristen,
Mayor. For those of y'all who don't know Kristen, this is Kristen Clemmer. She's our co-director of external events, which is the committee responsible for Bulldog Bash and Old Main Music Festival. She's a new face, so I just want to introduce y'all to her. I want to thank the board for your past cooperation with events like Bulldog Bash and Old Main Music Festival. There's something that they are things that mean so much to this community. We have once again partnered with the Convention and Visitors Bureau on this event, and we're working in conjunction with them. As a matter of fact, I was at the basketball game on Saturday. I saw Senator Alan Nunley from Tupelo. I was talking to him, and he told me, he said, what's that spring event y'all have here in Starkville? My wife and I came down for that last time and really enjoyed it. We saw Mo and Nickel Creek, and it was one of our best memories of Starkville. Of course, he's a Mississippi State alum, and that's just kind of an example of what Old Main Music Festival means to this community. It means to tourism and what it means to the students and everyone involved. As Kristen will tell you in a minute, it's going to be done again this year in conjunction with Cotton District Arts Festival, which we feel is huge in giving tourists and residents not one, but two reasons to come out and come into Starkville and spend money on a Saturday. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. She's going to give you guys some points of information as well as some proposals and requests. So, Kristen?
I just want to thank y'all very much for letting us come tonight and speak to y'all about this. And I do want to say that I'm really excited. I have worked on this committee for 2 years, and I was assistant co-director for Bulldog Bash, and so now I'm actually the co-director for Old Main Music Fest. So I'm very excited about this. First of all, the date, Saturday, April 23rd. And we want to request that, gates open at 6 and then music will be 7 p.m. to then 12:30 a.m. And just run that by all, make sure that would be okay. And I don't know if Adam already said this, but we are going to be working in conjunction with the Cotton District Arts Festival. When we met with the CVB, they suggested, and we thought it would be a great idea if we advertised together, and thought that, if this is going to be about the downtown atmosphere, they would also work with them in the Arts Festival, since that is earlier in the same afternoon. And so then, as people would be going to the Arts Festival, they would hear about Old Main Music Fest, and then they would just stay and come that night and go ahead and buy tickets. So we just want to let y'all know we are going to be working in conjunction with them. With tickets, they're $10 to $20 right now. We have not determined that yet, because we have not determined which bands are going to be playing that night, and so that's going to depend on the artists that we bring in. And this year, improvement would be at the gates. We're going to have wristbands. Last year, I know we just stamped after people paid their money, and then lots of people got in without paying, and that was just a problem. So this year, we've had suggestions that we use wristbands, as other music events do, and so that would be more effective. And letting people in for free. I think I just mentioned that. With the police, I know we're going to have to speak with them more a little bit later, but I have 12 officers right now for the event, but that's also going to depend on, the artists that we bring in, and the caliber of the artists that we bring in. It's going to depend on how many officers exactly that we're going to need for that night. And then my other co-director, Cliff, he has been talking with the T-shirt security people for backstage area. So we have 6 to 9 T-shirt officers for that right now. We want to request road closures. The only street that will be affected at 8 o'clock in the morning is Main Street right by Mugshots. The exact location where the stage will be set up, because it does take all day long to set up that stage, and so that area will be the only area that would need to be closed at 8 o'clock that morning. But the rest of them, Washington, Lafayette, and the rest of Main Street would be closed at 5 o'clock. So then we could start letting people in at 6 for the event. And then I don't know if y'all all see, but there's an attached map, and we have all that laid out, just to make sure that y'all see that. With electricity, we have contacted them, and they said they would love to help support us like they did last year and on all our other events. But specifics, we haven't discussed that with them yet, again, because we don't know the artist yet. So that will definitely be discussed later. Waste management, I went with my co-director and talked with them about this event. They said that they would be happy to let's have 2 dumpsters, 25 trash cans just like last year, and then 125 trash bags, which the Student Association, our committees, would go around. As soon as it's over at 12:30, our committees would just disperse and go and pick up every single piece of trash that we know in church parking lots, in parking areas around the Old Main Music Fest stage area. I mean, anywhere that trash would be, we would pick it up. And they said they would bring a street sweeper after. I guess it would be later on after we finish up picking all the trash ourselves. So that would be another request with waste management. The businesses, I know last year that the directors did not go beforehand and talk to the businesses downtown about this, but Cliff and I already have. We went last week, and we talked to every single business that would be affected downtown, and they are very excited about this event, and they support us in any kind of way. I did listen to any concerns any of them had about where streets would be blocked off. I know last year some of them said, a customer couldn't get here, and I said, that's fine, we'll take care of it, make sure we improve from our mistakes last year. So unless y'all have any questions, I think that's just about it.
Your street closure for your stage is from 8 a.m. Saturday and it open back up at 6 a.m. Sunday morning?
Yes, sir.
Why does it have to be that length of time?
Well, we start setting up the stage at 8 o'clock that Saturday morning, and then when the bands get done playing at 12:30, when we shut it off, then it takes them an hour at least to take down all of their equipment, And then with all of our manpower that we bring, I mean, it was at least 50 people or more.
We've usually had 20 to 30 people at least throughout the entire night with Bulldog Bash and Old Main Music Festival, and it's just one of those things that takes a long time.
Yeah.
And so,
Last year, I mean, I say last year, and we didn't leave until 6 o'clock that morning, like, getting everything in the truck.
What are the merchants in that area? Have you talked to them? What do they say about it?
I went and talked to them. They know exactly the way it went last year, and they said it was fine. It actually helped our, businesses during that time. And there's, I think, 2 that had concerns about getting their customers in and out, but I took care of that. And my committee members are going to be sitting at the block-off point saying, okay, well, if you're going here, then that's fine. We can let you in and do that. It won't be a problem.
Mr. Till, just to follow up to a colleague from Ward 5, a portion of Main Street can be closed from 8 a.m. that Saturday morning to 6 a.m. that Sunday morning is 22 hours. Now, if the concert is over at 12:30, my concern is what's going to be going on from 12:30 to 6. I want to make sure that no alcoholic beverages are going to be consumed on a Sunday morning on the city street.
again, in conjunction with the police department, we're going to work to get all of the audience and the crowd out of the premises. However, student association folks are going to have to stay around and disassemble the stage, pack it up in the trucks, and send it back off to where it came from. And that's a long, laborious, and a very sweaty process that I've been involved with about 5 times since I've been here, and it takes a long time. And it's just our biggest concern is that we keep those students and those other workers safe while they're working on that stage and building this exciting event.
I just want to commend the Student Association and all the student groups that have put on events like this throughout the community. They've done a great job in cleaning up, and definitely you can tell they've taken care of all the points, make sure they cover everything. My only suggestion is that your only request tonight is just the street closure, and I'm going to maybe throw in there that that we possibly, if need be, that we close off Lafayette Street as well, so that y'all have plenty of room there, because that's only a one-way street, and that y'all close it off at Jackson. 'Cause I think that's what we did last year, maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure, and that would be to help y'all out, to give you more space if the crowd gets too large, that can back up, and you've also got
Sure.
Lafayette
Okay.
closed off.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I think what we'll do is, again, I think the crowd size is probably going to depend on the artists that we bring in. So
Right.
we'll just work with Chief Lindley and his staff to make sure that we have the absolute best setup we can possibly have.
I have one question about tickets. Are they going to be sold at the Arts Festival also? Will there be a booth there?
We are going to pre-sell them this year. I think it's in the Union we're going to do that.
Into the
Or-
Bryan building as
in
well.
the Bryan building. And after that, then that day, we're going to be selling, hopefully be selling like our T-shirts there and like tickets there, so that when they're there, they can see, that there's an event later and that they can.
So with the pre-sale tickets, y'all have like an expectation of what the crowds are going to be like?
Absolutely.
Well, with that being said, Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we close Main Street, it's not really Cross Street, I guess you can say the area up near the electric department, starting at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning through 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, and then to follow the closing of Washington Street at 5 p.m. on Saturday to 1 a.m. on Sunday, and then at the closing of Lafayette Street, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., and also the closing at Jackson Street if that's needed. And we go ahead and put that in there with y'all's talks with the chief. You've already got approval to do so.
Okay.
I'll offer that in a motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
I have one other question about the police. Who's paying for these policemen? Are they coming out of your profit from the
That's
bash?
something that we still haven't addressed and that we're still we're still talking about. It just hasn't been finalized. Again, it's going to depend on the number of officers that we feel like we need, and then that again depends on the act that we bring in. So we kind of decided to wait and postpone that until a later meeting in order to have a more clear idea of how many officers exactly we'll need, and then we can go from there.
Then you can determine.
Just
who-
street closures
This is
tonight,
just
Alfred
street
Bowling are being
Well,
approved.
that's fine.
Just,
But this all doesn't indicate just street closure. I know that's what we're doing, but we have a lot of items on here.
Sure. These are points of information to make sure that you guys are aware that all things are in order, and y'all, and if we haven't covered any of our bases, then you can certainly point it out to us.
We have a lot of items on here that concerns me on account of the expense that the city might have to
Sure.
incur.
Absolutely.
Alderman Davis, did you?
I'd just like to comment, appreciate all of the planning, Adam, that you and your group have done. And I will say this, last year, I saw what was going on there. Actually, Carol and I went down there for a little bit. Huge crowd, all the big deal. I came back to eat breakfast at Starkville Cafe on Sunday morning about 6 o'clock, and I was amazed at how clean it was. It was like it didn't exist.
Well, we
It
certainly
didn't occur that night, and that was very well. If y'all can duplicate that, well, then.
Absolutely.
Yes,
That's our biggest concern. We know that, if that doesn't happen, then there's no more Old Main Music Festival next year. And the students pride themselves on the appearance of their community as well, and they care a lot about leaving it better than we found it. So
Well, you did last year, that was for sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other
Adam and Kristen, thing I liked last time the most was the playing of the mandolin by Nickel Creek. I've been trying to emulate it. I haven't made it yet. But we'll be at the Arts Festival over in the Cotton District playing, and I hope y'all bring in some great bands. I don't know if you can get Nickel Creek again. Time is a little short.
We're in negotiations. We'll let y'all know as soon as we know something for sure.
Sure.
Thank you, Adam.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, could we get a roll call vote on this?
All right. I'll ask for a show of hands.
Well, that's the same thing, yes,
All
sir.
right. All in favor of the motion, will you raise your hand, please? I see 1, 2, 6 opposed. I see Alderman Perkins opposed. All right, thank you very much.
Thank y'all so much.
Now, we come to the time for citizen involvement, and Alderman Zita has asked to make his comments at this time, and I suggest that we hear Alderman Zita's comments first, and then that we hear any citizens who wish to speak, first on the matter of the bond issue protest, and then on other matters.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Board. I asked the mayor that the 4 people that reviewed the petition be here so that we may be able to question them, and maybe in great detail, about some of their actions as far as the petition verification is concerned. Professor Ford, if you don't mind being my person that puts the slides on, I certainly would appreciate it. Now, there's going to be some redundancy, but I promised Sumner that I will be short and brief and to the point, and we'll try to do that.
Dr. Zitt, if I may interrupt, I have 20 minutes before I depart, so.
Yes, we're going to try to meet that, and they should be in order from top to bottom. Now, some of this is going to be redundant. I'm going to try to go very, very fast. In reviewing the names on the petition, we found things that really, really surprised us.
I'm sorry, Vic, I have not used this machine before. One sheet at a time?
Yeah, put the transparency on. The first transparency. There may be more than one. Yeah, no, you're out of order. The top one. There you go. That one right there.
Yes?
Yes. Now, this is redundant, but I want to bring it to attention again. Typed into the spreadsheet was the name of a fellow by the name of Harry A. Cole, Jr. He protested and signed a counter petition, said that he'd never signed the petition, which is true. Put the next slide on, please. Here is the person that signed the petition, Harry W. Cole. Harry A. Cole, Jr. never signed the petition. And here is where Harry W. Cole, who signed the petition, is a registered voter, city of Starkville. Next slide, please. And here's Harry Cole's withdrawal of a name that he never signed. And the next one is again where Harry W. Cole, and here's his printed name, and he was disfranchised and said he was not even on. In fact, it wasn't even typed onto the petition. And these types of mistakes, I feel, are just unexcusable. You can just set all of that aside now, please. Now, just that. Now go to the next one. Right. There you go. Top to bottom. next person, and this is the a sheet where a gentleman that I hope is here is Alex Buchard, who signed it, and he is a registered voter in the city of Starkville, and he was disenfranchised. Next slide, please. Here is where he is registered as Alex Long Buchard in the roll, and this is where Alex Buchard signed it, and I'm trying to pick up, he's line 2 right here with a dot. Alex Buchard from Shadowwood, one of Mr. McLaurin's constituents. He was disenfranchised. Go ahead. Here's illegible names, and we picked up people like Dr. Orgla, whose name is clearly legible on the sheet where he signed it. Go ahead and put Dr. Orgla's aside. The one that's on the,
I'm sorry.
this one. Just go ahead and put that aside. And the top sheet, and I'm only going to go through 2 of 7 sheets. We have identified of a total of 570 just as a cursory, and we have not done a thorough job at all. We think we can get this to at least 200 names of people that we feel signed the petition validly. Their names were typed into the spreadsheet because of either errors in typing in the names, reading the names, or errors in the voter roll. And you'll see where in the spreadsheet we took electronically and just copy and paste. This is where it's in, I'll call it Attorney Kirby's spreadsheet, and this is where it appears in the voter roll right below it, so that you can just look at the same name. And is Carolyn Adams Price here tonight? Would you come to the table, please? She signed on page 38, line 11. Here, please. Just take a seat, please. And these are numbered sheets or copies of the original petition. There are page numbers at the bottom. We're going to try not to get these out of order, but we'll go to page, make sure that's as clear as possible as far as focusing goes. If you remember how to use that, Bob, back in the old days, there's a lever on the side of that vertical handle. But this is page 11. Excuse me, page 38. And somehow I'll try to be as brief as possible. But then at the bottom, page 24. Harold, I could let you do this better than I could. But go to page 38, line 11. How did you sign that petition, please?
Carolyn Adams Price.
Carolyn Adams Price. And how did you print your name?
Oh, that's not my printing.
That's your printing?
No.
Somebody, well, what happened was the people that typed it in did not print her cursive writing as she signed it, which is Carolyn Adams Price, but typed in only Carolyn Adams. So the 4 people that were doing the verification had a hard time. This is Carolyn Adams Price. She signed it, and she was disenfranchised as saying she is not a registered voter. Carolyn, are you a registered voter in the city of Starkville?
I have been for 15 years.
Thank you so much. Mr. Miles Carpenter is in the back. Miles, will you hold up your hand, please, or stand up? I would like for you, if you would, Carolyn, please, to write down what you've told this board and this audience and this TV audience on a piece of paper, sign it, be sure to print your name, your address, and a telephone number where we can contact you, I would certainly appreciate
You
it.
want me to go back there and do that?
Yeah, that would be fine, and Mr. Carpenter will be in the hall, please. Now, you see, other things happen like this. Now, this is redundant, but Henry Barry, how many Henry, B-A-R-Y? If you look at his signature, it's B-A-R-R-Y. Here is a Stephen Bass. He was disenfranchised. This one is questionable, Pamela Jean, right here. We acknowledge that. But here's a Betty, she signed it, Betty D. Beckham. She's listed in the roll as a Betty A. I wonder if when it was typed into the roll, if it should have been a D right here, because she clearly printed and signed it as a Betty D. But how many B-E-T-T-Y-E's, Beckhams, are there? I think she should have been contacted. If any of these people are in the audience, I would certainly appreciate it if they'd met. Here's a Johnny Bell, a direct correlation. Now, he signed it Johnny F. He's listed as Johnny Bell in the voter rolls. We feel that that person should have been contacted. Here's a John Bell right here. He's listed as a John D. Bell on the voter rolls. He signed it as a John Bell. You'll see a lot of people who signed different than how they exactly listed in the voter rolls, and they were counted, some were not counted. Seems to be a kind of random process. Here's a Debbie Benton. We think there may be some problems here. We would throw that one out, but this is a clear one. Is Jacqueline Bowler here, please? Did she arrive? Jacqueline Bowler had called me and said she would be here tonight. Did she arrive? Well, if you look clearly at page 248 on the second signature, it's clearly Jacqueline B-O-L-E-R as she signed it. It was typed in as an S. She was disenfranchised because of a typo into a spreadsheet. Marion Booth, now, for example, was one we acknowledge that he signed a counter petition, and he is registered to vote, but the X was put in the wrong column. Is Alex Buchard here tonight? Would you come to the table, please? And try not to get those out of order. Please, Alex. I believe you're in Mr. McLaurin's ward, are you not? Ward 3?
I believe so.
Good, thank you. Alex is here tonight. The review committee said he was not registered. Alex, if you would look on page 25402 and try not to get those out of order, please, or we'll have a mess on our hands for the next one.
$254.02.
You're on 254, page 254 at the bottom, and you would be the second signature from the top.
I don't see it on this one.
254. Now, there may be some typos.
This is what I have on 254.
254?
Oh, there it is. I was looking at the other one.
I believe that's page 267. Go back to 254. Sometimes when you're under things like this is like a master's oral sometimes, or a PhD oral, which a lot of us have been in on both sides of the fence.
Yes, I see my name.
You see, is that your signature?
That's my signature.
That is your signature, and you're a registered voter in the city of Starkville.
Since October 2003.
And the review committee said you were not registered and disenfranchised you by putting it in this column. Would you see Mr. Carpenter and write it out in just plain what you've told this board and this audience, and just plain English as you would tell anybody else, sign it, and be sure to write your name. And you are Alexandre Long.
Alexander, it's French.
Alexander, right,
Long Bouchard.
sure. Well, I certainly appreciate you
Ah, no
coming
problem.
tonight. If you'd see Mr. Carpenter, I would certainly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
How,
coming.
Yes, sir.
on, when you registered to vote, how did you sign, when you registered, what were you registered as?
Alexander Long Bouchard.
And how did you sign the petition?
Alex L. Bouchard.
Matt Bouchard, are you here?
He was unavailable to come tonight.
Unavailable to come tonight, but he did, you will testify.
I hadn't really talked to him. He told me he couldn't come tonight, but he didn't mention.
Right.
We talked about it a little bit.
Good. And we'll be in contact with him.
Okay.
And I certainly do appreciate your participation. And I believe he's your brother, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you so much for coming. We'll skip over Matt. He signed it. He was disenfranchised also, and he is a registered voter. Michelle Bricker, is she here? Michelle, you mind coming to the table, please? Now, Michelle is a wife of one of my former students, right? And he
Correct.
is a professor in chemical engineering. So Mark is your husband, right?
Yes.
Mark Bricker. And I had the privilege of teaching him at the Waterways Experiment Station. Very good student
Thank you.
and a very good professor, too. But we recognized Bricker right away because I taught her husband. And here Michelle is the way she signed her name. She's listed on the voter rolls as Stephanie Michelle. And if you'll look on page 112, line 4, and if we could keep those in order again, please.
112.
112,
Yes, that's it.
that is your signature?
That is my signature.
And you are a registered voter in
Yes,
the
I
city
am.
of Starkville?
Yes.
Good. How long have you been registered?
We moved here a little over 2.5 years ago, and I registered soon after that.
Good. And you have been actively participating in voting in Starkville?
Yes, I voted, yes.
We certainly appreciate your continued participation in Starkville, and I would appreciate if you do the same thing that other people have done. See Mr. Carpenter and just write it out.
Okay.
You know, what you've
I
told
sure
this board.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Right below Michelle Bricker is Devon Brooks. Here is his middle name. He signed it just the way Michelle signed her name. She signed her middle name. This person signed. They were both disenfranchised on this particular review. Now, after a second review, this dot indicates that the committee put 22 names of this 121 back on. One was W.D. Don Buckley. He's registered as just Don Buckley. He signed it as W.D. I understand also he put on the sheet on page 247-3 in parenthesis Don Buckley. In looking at this signature right here, Sarah Butler, this lady has a very difficult time writing. She's an elderly lady. We know her quite well, and she lives on Old West Point Road, I think in your ward, Mr. Boland, and she was disenfranchised because she's clearly Sarah Butler, although it was typed in as B-U-L-T-H-R for some reason. And right below it you see the name of Christina Burton, and then below that you see Janice Bush. Those people were disenfranchised by the review committee. If you look at that list on the first page and throw out, for example, this Beasley right here, throw out Betty back on the card. This D needs to be checked, but throw those out. Throw out Johnny Bell, John Bell, and Debbie Denton right here. Throw those out. But they need to all be examined much more closely than what we've done so far. You will come up with a total of 12 names I feel should have not been disenfranchised on the review of this petition. Next page, and we're going to quit with this one. The review committee said on the next page that these people in blue are legitimate voters. We'll agree that they are. But there are a lot of other people that they missed in between. You'll see that here is Hayden Carr, middle name, signed it, middle name. This is his full name as it appears on the voter registration. All you see is a street address on the voter registration here. Just sign the middle name. He's okay, says the review committee. Here's Tommy Carlisle. He's registered as Harold T. Signed it as Tommy Carlisle. Sure, you've got addresses here to help you. But here's Jesse Carpenter. We think he is moved. He needs to be examined much more closely than just throwing him out. William Carr here. He signed it. William Carr, he's listed as William C. Carr Jr. He's thrown out. Sheila Chandler is thrown out. Direct name, thrown out. Different address, sure, but they need to be checked on because it's too close. Now, this one we'll give up because we think, although it has the same last name, was this they signed it, Jacqueline signed it as Gwen, throw that one out. Here's another one, probably Melvin, throw that one out. But here is that Harry Cole, whose name, who never signed it. Harry W. Cole should be substituted in for him because we saw his signature, and yet the committee says we're not going to acknowledge that mistake. I mean, where is honesty in government? Openness. And I know this fella. He's my colleague for years, Harry Cole Jr. And as I said before, he stood up in a public meeting and said, I never signed that petition. Who put my name on it? Well, the people that typed in the, I'll call it the attorney's spreadsheet, put his name on it. And here is Robert Cooper. Why is he disenfranchised? He signed it. John T. Copeland, Jr., a physician here in town for years. I asked one of the review committees, why'd you throw Dr. Copeland's name out? Is Dr. Copeland here tonight? He has a very, very busy schedule, and he couldn't promise me he'd be here. But how many people in the audience know Dr. Copeland? You know, a lot of you do. He was disenfranchised. It said on the petition, on the voter list, we saw three John T. Copelands. Well, it happened that in the spreadsheet where that was printed from, that there is a Mrs. John T. Copeland Sr. registered. The Mrs. was cut off, so they thought that was a man. It is Dr. Copeland's mother. His dad is deceased and has been for quite a while. John T. Copeland, the one that signed it, is a junior, and then he has son John T. Copeland III, who did not sign it, but Dr. Copeland will attest that yes, he was disenfranchised. Here's a direct one, Stephen Davis. Now, here the committee said, here's a Stuart Davis. We'll acknowledge him, but we won't acknowledge this Davis right above it. Here's a Max Dietenbach right here. You may question that one. The committee said, okay here, but here's just one letter. And we need to examine this for sure, City Clerk. This one right here, Latasha Ducks. How many ducks do we have with just one letter of their first name different? We need to examine that, Madam City Clerk. That particular one, remember Duck. And go back to the original and see if we've got a mistake in the voter rolls of one letter. They acknowledge Dykes here, Sue Edmonds. She signed it, Sue J. This needs to be examined right here. Well, if you would take this, we've already got 12 names, and here you've got 1, 2. We'll acknowledge that one has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just going to go to my sheet I think if you take those two sheets, you have a total of 27 names that should have not been disenfranchised, and a total of 7 sheets. We're not going to go through the rest of them because I promised Sumner I would not talk too long, and I've overshot my limit already. But this is what has happened. I believe in open government. We had a magazine, or we get a magazine here in the city called The Nation Cities. On the February 21st issue, there's an article says a closer look at a victory for democracy, talking about the Ukraine. And here is one of the people, the United States citizen, who was an observer in that particular election in the Ukraine. And he goes into detail of what happened. Yushchenko, who is now the prime minister, was first declared the winner. Well, the people who were verifying the election went into closed session, came out and said, no, Yushchenko did not win that election. The person backed by Putin and Russia won the election. Well, the people took to the streets in Kiev, Ukraine, and said, what kind of business is this going on as far as an election is concerned? And the Ukraine Supreme Court said, we're going to hold another election, and you know what happened? Yushchenko is now the president of the Ukraine, and you've seen him on the news. Is democracy important? Is being fair and honest important? You've seen the names, and I would like for the public to just to see these very few names that we've come up, all 121 of them. And so, Mayor and Board, I'd like to make a very simple motion. I move that to promote open and responsible government, the names removed from the petition as disqualified, there are 570 of them, be immediately posted for public review at the front counter in the office of city clerk by the city clerk. And I so move, Mr. Mayor and Board of Alderman.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask Dr. Zeta a question?
Well, let's see if we can get a second to this motion.
I'll second that. I have a
You
couple of
second
questions.
the motion, all right, go ahead.
Dr. Zeta, now, I want to make sure I've listened very carefully. Now, you're not asking for a recount. You're just only asking for just a public review
Yes.
of the names. And you understand that we've already approved the bonds at the last meeting for the municipal
Yes.
justice complex.
Yes, I understand
Because
that.
I'm clearly in support of it. I want the record to be clear. But, of course, I don't have an objection if the motion is just going to be to a public review of the listing of the names, because I don't just personally see, in my opinion, how they can just hold the process up. But I'll support that, for the people just to see that. Is that motion clear that, I think it's clear that it'll be available at the city clerk's office?
Yes, and all I would like to have as part of the motion is that if there's an N after their name on the spreadsheet, that those with an N by their name, those names be available from the spreadsheet. And I would recommend that the headings that Mrs. Kirby and the review committee have be a part of that record so people can see why they were disenfranchised, not registered, whatnot.
But your motion is just for a public review. That's the motion.
Yes.
Of the list, a public review of the list of names that were disqualified from the bond petition to be available at the city clerk's office. And if anyone requested, the city clerk has to make it available.
Yes.
That's all it does.
Yeah, and I'd like to have a copy there so that people could just very easily go up and examine it on the counter.
They are contained in the minutes of the September 14 meeting, so you could easily reproduce a copy of the September 14 minutes and just place them up there. The complete report is in the minutes.
Which anybody
It's in the
can come
minutes.
get
It's
at
a
any
public
time.
record.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a public record.
Mr. Ford, can you put back up the duck, because I have a really the person's address they wrote on the petition and the address that was in the voter's roll is totally different, but you said that we should check it.
Yes, there are some where people have moved, you see, from the time they were registered, from the time they signed the petition, you see,
So-
in the June era.
Do you say that the review process should be carried out differently than, say, in counting like an affidavit ballot, like in our last election, that got us elected to this board?
Well, if you're going to count a person that signed their middle name and their last name with only one address in the voter rolls, for example, in one place, you should be consistent and count the next person. Because people have moved from the time that they registered to vote and as they appear on the city voter rolls and the time then that they signed the petition.
I'll put it back up there, but that's fine.
I would like to ask for a little bit further clarification of this motion. Alderman Perkins, you used the word review a couple of times, which would indicate, it would suggest the possibility that there's some sort of process being authorized here. As I understand it, Dr. Zitta is asking for a display of this information.
That's just the word that came out. I have no objection. Display is fine. We won't get
We
into
have a
semantics.
number of
Yeah.
copies, if I'm understanding the motion and the situation correctly, we have a number of copies of the results of the original review, which have been available for anyone at any time to see, and which is being requested here, can certainly be placed on the counter at the, in the city clerk's office, but that information has been available for months, for anybody who wanted to see it.
Yes, but it's much easier if it's available on the counter as opposed to saying, let me find such and such a document, because we're familiar with it, but the general public then will come up and say, well, I would like to see such and such. I'm not sure what I want.
Could we ask for the word display, which is, I think, serves the purpose you're describing there?
Yes.
And suggest no more than putting the document on the desk for anyone who wishes to come and see it?
On the counter.
Yes.
Yes,
Is that
that's all we're asking, Mayor and Board. That's all we're asking.
We have a motion and second, and it is to place this document, I think is it 74 pages, isn't that what it is?
It's the September 14 minutes, it's about this thick.
I think it's about 74 pages, and there've been more than one copy in my office since September, and we'd be glad to put a copy on if the board passes this motion, and we're ready for any further discussion.
Yeah, This is my copy printed front and back of Ms. Kirby's, that she sent to all the Board of Alderman.
Well, I'm referring to the, yes, that's the same document.
This same
Yeah.
document with all the X's on it.
What's the last page, in 74?
62 of 62, the one
All right.
that I had.
So Alderman Zitter is simply asking that the document be placed on the counter in the city clerk's office, the document having already been available to the public for months now.
Call the question.
Let's-
All right, we have a call for question, we're ready to vote, all in favor, would you raise your hand, please? And that is a unanimous vote, and it will be placed there by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Mayor and Board, I certainly appreciate this very, very much.
All right, we will entertain now, first, anyone who wishes to speak for up to 3 minutes concerning this particular issue. Yes, sir.
Mayor, could I make sure I get all of these,
All right.
please?
I'm Chuck Scarborough, and I would like to give out these things, if I may approach the bench. It's the checklist requirements for qualified petitioners that the review committee used to validate the signatures. And on this, I've indicated the sections of the Mississippi Code that I think applies. And I would like to start with 5 and 6 together first. It takes, if you register to vote, you can vote 30 days later. Isn't that right, Ms. Outlaw?
That's correct.
And that's section 231511. Now, I call your attention to number 5. It says you have to be a resident of Oktibbeha County, Mississippi since at least July 20th, 2003. Now, I might not be very good at math, but it seems like there's a lot more days between July 20th, 2003 and July 20th, 2004 than 30. So I would like to know why that requirement was there. That is directly in opposition to the statute. And if you want to know why Mr. Carpenter, who registered in October 2003, was kicked off, I can tell you. Because he was not registered by July 20th, 2003. And all of these people were kicked off. I talked to Al Quinn, and there were a number of people kicked off for that reason. That's totally and completely illegal. It's against the statute. Now, we go to number 6. July 20th, January 20th, it says, 2004. I think there's more than 30 days between January 20th, 2004 and July 20th, 2004. July 20th, 2004 was the due date of the petition, original petition. So my question is, why is number 6 there? I don't think that was overlooked. I think after passing through so many hands, everybody must have noticed it. Now let's look at 1 and 2. If you look at section 2515-641, when you compare signature to signature, it's do they correspond? Now, the review committee compared signatures to printed names. This is a little beyond me. But if there's a signature here and a signature here, and they're not the same, you can tell if they're by the same person lots of time, most of the time, or not.
Mr. Scarborough, I may have miscounted, but you've spoken either 3 or 4 minutes, so please finish as quickly as you can, please.
Okay. The standard established by 1 and 2 is, in my opinion, the signature has to be okay beyond a reasonable doubt. But the standard established by the statute is if the signature has the greater weight of evidence, it's counted. So the standard applied by the review committee was much higher than the standard required by the statute. I believe this was willful misconduct by this board. I believe the 10-day rule can be waived in such a case. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any comment?
I'm not familiar with Mr. Scarborough. I don't know where his law license came from. I know practicing law without a license is not legal in Mississippi. I do know that this board has relied exclusively and entirely on the licensed opinion of their bond counsel, Mr. Randy Wall. I am aware that his opinion is not limited merely to statutory interpretation, but also gives deference also to Attorney General opinions and cases as interpreted by judges of this state.
Let me ask, Ms. Kirby, are there clearly typographic errors in this checklist of requirements then?
Not that I'm aware of. This came from the bond council.
Where did that July 20th, 2003, that year residence in Octavio County, and where did the January 20th boy resident of Starkville city limits come from then?
This same source.
It's obviously 1 year and 6 months, 1 year in one case and 6 months in the other case. Anyone else who wishes to speak for up to 3 minutes? Mr. Ford?
First, let me apologize to Alderman Zita for not doing a very good job on those slides. My years as a professor have been too far back in my history.
Let me interject, you did a wonderful job. I take credit for not having it that good in order.
Well, thank you. Mr. Mayor, Alderman, we as citizens, you as mayor and alderman, are involved in a very divisive issue. Most all of us support building a new facility for the police,
Yes.
but many feel the site should reinforce downtown, the center of downtown, and not be built on the edge of town, as you seem intent on doing. If we were exploring the construction of a new school building, we would be required to have a positive vote by the public. In fact, if I understand correctly, a 60% vote. Is that not correct?
That's Mr. Wall's
No.
area.
My sense is we would have to endorse it as the public. But in this case, we're not asked or even allowed to endorse it. This board and the mayor have discouraged discussion and a vote on this critical issue. I think we see this tonight. I call on each of you, I know Mr. Zita would do this in a moment, but on your own volition, to place an advisory vote on the next ballot, an advisory vote. And then let's discuss this openly. Let's give everyone an opportunity to have their opinion heard, and then move ahead with whatever the community wants to happen. It would be an advisory vote to you. And it might support what you seem intent on doing. It might take issue with it. You don't know. So I would hope you would do that. In that process, let us heal the wounds which have been allowed to fester, and which are festering, and which are turning gangrenous right now. And let's move ahead as a true community, which is what I think we all really want. I would like to see this board maintain itself and do the right thing. I personally feel that if they don't do the right thing, they need to be replaced. But I would like you to show the leadership to actually bring this community together. And I don't see you doing that now. I plead with you to do that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mills.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Alderman. I want to turn around and say this to the people in this audience, that I'm James A. Mills, and I've been before this board since last September. And you can see tonight what we have been experiencing for the last 6 to 8 months, being totally ignored. And I want to say this very shortly. I appreciate the fact that we have a lot of young people sitting in this audience, college students. And I don't want you to get a misinterpretation of what our city government is. But you can see up there, you understood those charts and graphs. And now we've got a motion to do something. And I don't know if anybody in here can tell you what we are gonna accomplish other than killing time again, because we don't know how this is gonna be done, when it's gonna be done, and who's gonna do it. So in the end, we'll probably be back just like we are tonight. Take notice to this. Thank you.
It'll be done at 8 o'clock in the morning, and if somebody else doesn't do it, I'll do it. Be done at City Hall and the clerk's office.
I'll try to be there with you.
Any other person wish to speak, please? Anybody wish to speak for up to 3 minutes on any subject? Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. My name is Ruth Josie.
Say again, please.
My name is Ruth Josie. And Mr. Turner and I are here to ask for some help. In the last 2 weeks, there was an accident on Louisville Street involving my car and Mr. Turner. And I feel we're all very lucky that he's with us tonight. And I'll let him elaborate on our recommendation and request, but with traffic increasing, we would like to ask you to look at the area on Louisville Street from Highway 12 to Wood Street. There is a sidewalk, but from Wood Street to the light at, is it Street Lindbergh? Gillespie. There is no sidewalk. And on a dark night and the traffic going as fast as it is, and some of us can't walk as well as others, then we would like to ask you to consider looking at it for safety purposes.
Thank you. Did you get the spelling of this lady's name?
Josie?
You talking about from the one-way street right there that goes from Wood Street to Gillespie? Okay.
And it might help to keep it a little cleaner in that area, too.
I believe she's talking about Louisville Street.
No, it's Louisville Street from
Between Wood and
Wood and
Gillespie or Scales, whichever.
That's
you
railroad
choose.
tracks do that around.
Yeah.
Mr. Excuse me.
Excuse me just a minute, Mr. Turner.
Could I ask, Mr. Turner, did you have to walk in the street
It's just not on.
where this accident happened?
On February the 10th,
Well, you're right.
February 10th, I left Wood Street going to a NACP meeting, and I took Louisville Street, and just before I got to the apartments and the White House on the right, I was struck by a car, broke the mirror, didn't suffer no broken bone, didn't get knocked out, but there's no sidewalk there. And this is the first time that me and her have met. Her daughter was upset that she hit someone, but she didn't know what. And if I didn't have these clothes on that I have on now, I'd probably be dead. I have this medical leg on because I have illness. But if something not done, I was hit this time. What me and her fear that next time someone could get killed on that street.
Let me ask a question. Were you walking on the sidewalk or crossing the street or what? I'm not clear.
When I came up out of Wood Street, I was on the right-hand side.
You were walking.
Atlanta, that has no sidewalk.
You were walking in Wood Street that has no sidewalk.
I was walking on Louisville Street that don't have no sidewalk on the right-hand side.
You're walking on the east side of Louisville Street and not on the west side
Right.
where there is a sidewalk.
No.
I'm confused.
Here's what it is. You have Wood Street, Louisville Street. He turned north. There is a sidewalk on the west side, but there's not a sidewalk from that point, which is Dean West's house.
Right.
All the way by the Edwards' house,
To the
by
railroad.
another house, and then you got the railroad, and then you got the the light.
Right.
There is no sidewalk on that side of the street.
On the east side.
So Mr. Turner was walking down the side of the street, I'm sure,
On the east side.
on the east side,
Yeah.
on the, by the curb.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
Right.
In other words, he
Right.
was not walking on the sidewalk, but on the east side. But-
And if, when you get to Gillespie, there's a sidewalk that picks up on the east side
Right.
going down to Greensboro.
Yeah, I understand. In other words, there's no sidewalk on Wood Street, and there's no sidewalk on the east side of Louisville Street. Both, because you had to come out of Wood Street to get to Louisville Street from Pecan Acres, right?
Right.
So both of those streets are a problem, are they not?
Well, we just scared that someone will get hurt seriously on Liverpool Street from where Wood Street comes down to that light.
Yeah.
Because a pedestrian, someone running or whatnot, they have nowhere to go.
Right.
And the car speed from 12 to Greenboro, from Greenboro to 12.
Yeah, I understand completely. And Ms. Josie, you're my neighbor. I'm sorry these things happen. I hope we can do it. I hope we can get a sidewalk on Wood Street, because I know he's got to walk in this street there also,
And Louisville.
and Louisville Street, both of them. It just happened he was on Louisville Street this time.
Right. My daughter and I went back over, and we ran into Mr. Davis at that time. We didn't discuss the situation, but we both walked the same exact area that Mr. Turner did, and it was hard for me.
Sure. Right. And there's no crosswalks, I gather it, when you come out of Wood Street to cross over to the west. No crosswalk signs at all. We've got a major problem in that whole area. And I hope we can address it, Mr. Mayor and Board of Alderman.
I don't question that there is a serious problem, but I think we may have lost sight of the fact, as I understand these comments, I understand that there is a sidewalk on the west side of Louisville Street in this same area that we're speaking of. Can somebody confirm that?
That's true.
That's true.
So there is a sidewalk on the west side of this stretch of Louisville Street. Not to say, of course, that your complaint is not legitimate and that we obviously do have a problem.
Well, it's just that her daughter was scared. She knows she hit someone, but she didn't know what. I didn't know, and like we was at loss, and she was in fear that she didn't know what, I didn't know what. So that we just had 2 weeks of nightmare.
Thank you, sir.
Could we have our city administration address this particular problem and see if there's any way we can put a sidewalk on that east side of Louisville Street, and also if anything can be done on Wood Street also? I know we've got the sidewalk going to Highway 12, but if Mr. Turner has a sidewalk on the east side of Louisville Street, he's still got to walk in the street on Wood Street.
That's good, Dr. Zittle. We got some areas where we don't have a sidewalk at all on some side of the streets. I mean, I'm fine with opening up a whole study all over I think that's what Miss Shelley Johnstone's doing in her comprehensive plan, but we've got some areas that are just as dangerous to have no sidewalk on either side of the streets.
Sure, I certainly agree, Mr. Beck.
So,
I live on a street that's about 3 miles long, or near a street that's about 3 miles long that doesn't have a sidewalk on it. And none of that is to show any lack of feeling for this situation, but simply to say that to suddenly decide that any and every street requires a sidewalk is an order that's totally beyond our means.
And once upon a time, the city was in the business and had the philosophy of building sidewalks, and that's why they exist in some of the older areas of town. The city, years and years ago, moved away from that concept of the desirability of sidewalks. I think, however, now the city is moving back toward that concept of desirability of sidewalks, and I suspect that in the new comprehensive plan, there may appear requirements for sidewalks in new constructed subdivisions and so forth, and the city, of course, will continue to address sidewalks in areas, older areas of town, as time and funds permit.
Anyone else wish to speak for up to 3 minutes? All right, we'll move on to...
Mr. Turner's back. The first was Ms. Josie.
You didn't keep time the first time because we interrupted you so often.
There's just two concerns of the citizens, and they're getting very restless. To the attorney and Mr. McLaurin, will we have the voter roll ready to go by the primary time? People getting restless, and we really, since we're going to 7 wards, they really don't know where they at, like who they'll be voting for, and it's very frustrating to the people.
Mr. Turner, all I can say in response to that is that it's the responsibility of the clerk's office and the election commission to make sure that the rolls are up to date and people know in which ward they now reside, and I'm confident that that will be the case.
What's the status of that process?
We're currently working on the rolls. We have the election commissioners have been coming in, and they will be ready before the primaries.
I think Mrs. Ruth Band is working hard on that. You've got her exclusively on that, I believe.
Exactly.
And she is very, very good.
Good hire, wasn't it?
Another concern is the dangerous dog are a problem. A lot of the college students be running with their dogs, and when they see me like that, they have to stop because the dogs feel like I have a cane, as I'm a problem. But it's very concerned that they have to stop running to detain their, dog. And I know that not only me, a lot of other people, if they see the dog and them, we have to give them enough room so that it won't be a competition.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk about the dog ordinance a little later in the meeting. We move to departmental business, Parks and Recreation, Community Development, Public Services, Police Department. I believe we have one item that may not require
Mayor,
your...
I move authorization for Detective Bill Lott to travel out of state for felony investigation and any needed travel advancements.
I second that.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Fire Department,
Mayor, I move permission for Lieutenant Charles Yarbrough to attend a class of Discovering the Road to High-Risk Audience to National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, on April 18th to 29th. Any necessary travel advances may be needed.
motion and second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So the Electric Department. All right, report from City Attorney.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure what this property sales refers to. That may be the Booth property that you talked to me about. If it is, I'll just need to get a copy of the contract so I can review it. The landfill tipping, that's to go to the Attorney General. The dog ordinance has been drafted. I have it in proposal form. I have extra copies here for the press and members of the public. If anybody wants to leave me their email address, I'll be glad to send it to you that way if you want to study it. This is a radically different ordinance than the one we presently have. It's also different radically, I think, from the Columbus ordinance. I've had enormous input and support from Alderman Davis and his committee. This draft proposal, of course, is still subject to review comments. I'd like to, especially to have persons with great involvement with Humane Society and the Kennel Club to again look at it, as well as the enforcement officials, Judge Ishii and Prosecutor Faber. However, it is a combination of a restraint, control of animals ordinance with a humaneness treatment of animals ordinance. It's a combination of several aspects. It's not just have your dog on a leash when you're out jogging, which of course that does require. But it also gets into neglect issues and things like that that would allow our enforcement to go in and ensure not only the safety of the public, that animals be properly restrained, but also enhance the health and safety of the animals as well. This is a combination primarily of ordinances from DeKalb County, Georgia, Lafayette, Louisiana, or Lafayette, Louisiana, depending on your French accent, Tacoma, Washington, some of Starkville's prior ordinance, which emphasized more humaneness and did not have quite as much in control and restraint, and some from the city of Columbus, and I also have had suggestions to add some from Gadsden, Alabama. So it may be a little bit wordy, but it was an attempt to bring in the best of all of those different ordinances with very good input from the committee and Alderman Davis. So I welcome any comments. I prefer to get them from you by email so I can work through them as we're working in our drafting process.
Mayor, I make a motion we take this under advisement for the next, and put it on the next board meeting's agenda.
Second.
If I'm,
Motion is second, any discussion?
yeah, if I might say, our committee, and Sonia Barrett's back there, she has done an extremely great job along with Jane Yateman and Richard McKee. We're going to take a look at, of course, this draft. We're going to go over it again. We're going to see if, because there was a lot of cutting and pasting that had to be done, want to make sure that it is done. We hope to be able to, through this process, and bring it back in the form that we would like to pass it on March the 15th.
All in favor of this motion, would you indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
So we'll be on our agenda for the 15th.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Outlaw, would you present the claims docket and the financial statements?
The claims docket and financial state claims docket for February 2005 and the financial statement for January. I have gone through, I've spoken with my accounts payable, and I recommend approval.
Based upon recommendation of the city clerk, move approval.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And that's unanimous, I believe. We're down to recommend modification of airport property disposition policy. In August of '98, the Board of Alderman approved a policy concerning disposition of property at the airport that is west of Airport Road and an extension thereof. And in this decision that was made, it involved property that faces Highway 25, including 40 acres of property that is the exclusive property of the city of Starkville. And I am suggesting to you that this decision did not properly take into consideration the value of commercial property that now faces Highway 25. And without being aware of this policy, we did violate it in selling 2 acres, and now we're ready to sell 2 acres more of property, and also including the location of the recommended municipal justice complex. And I would like to recommend to the board that we amend this policy by excluding property to a 600-foot depth facing Highway 25 west of the airport, and excluding all of the property that is that is not FAA obligated.
Did the airport board recommend this, Mr. Bear?
They recommended this original action, and they have not recommended what I'm suggesting to you tonight, and I'm not at all sure that they would, because I'm not sure that this, I have reason to believe that this would not meet with the approval of the airport board.
I do not feel that we ought to do anything around, over and above the airport board, which is advisory to us, without their at least having a chance to address it themselves and address it to this board. and I cannot vote for or even condone this, and I think we ought to go to the next matter.
Any other expression from any members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, we might want to take this recommendation under advisement and let the airport board give us a written comment as to their position on the matter.
All right.
And I would so move.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. So,
I move permission for the airport manager, Mr. Rodney Lincoln, and 2 airport board members of the airport board's choosing to attend the 2005 Municipal Airports Association Annual Meeting in Tunica, May 11th through 13th, and any necessary travel advancements that may be needed.
second. Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
As the Board of Alderman's representative of the airport board or liaison, I also move approval for them to authorization to advertise for engineering services proposed FAA grant application that they have received.
I second that.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. All right.
Also, on your amended agenda from the airport board, and it's due on March the 15th, there's a possibility of them to win a grant that will be able to allow them to construct 10 new hangars at the Bryan Airport. So I also move for authorization to submit a grant application for those 10 new hangars.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered.
Also, with the airport board, you might remember it some time ago, we accepted a bid from Sam Oswalt and Sons to construct the airport out there, and that was not exactly done up to par with the city attorney, and so we need to go back and ratify that. And we
That
need,
is a parking lot, right?
right, the parking lot, yeah. We need to ratify that the Board of Alderman accepted the bids and accepted the low bid of $115,958 for construction of a parking lot at Bryan Field Airport, and low bid being Sam Oswalt and Sons Contractors.
And authorize the contract be entered into.
Yes.
And the mayor to execute the contract, please.
There you go. And that also-
Second. Did I hear second?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And in view of your decision about the property on the west side of the airport, it may be advisable to withhold action on this next matter. This board has already sold 2 acres of property to the Booth family, Innovative Broadcasting, and has authorized the sale of 2 additional acres of property. The reason that hasn't been closed is that there was a judgment pending against the city, which has now been settled, and that delayed the closing of this contract. However, it is in violation of this policy that I made reference to a little while ago about the use of property west of Airport Road. So I would hope that we'll find a way to resolve that and to amend our policy so that we would not be in violation of it, and to go through with this sale in good faith with the awareness that the airport board needs the proceeds from this sale to pay for this parking lot that you just authorized. Is there anybody have any question or comments? Ms. Kirby, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'd like to study it. The contract for the prior purchase does not apply to the present conveyance. That's not an impediment, but that's not addressing the issue you raised of the policy. I'd like to study that and compare it, if you would allow me.
And I would announce that the Booth family has asked that upon the closure of this second parcel, that their commitment or their obligation to begin and complete construction of the facility on this property begin with the closure on the second parcel. Quite a bit of time has passed now since they actually purchased this first parcel, and they did not have immediate access to the property, and there have been many delays that have prevented them from actually starting construction. So they have asked that on this second parcel that they be that they be given a year to begin construction and then 2 years to complete construction on their improvements on that property. And I hope the board will take that into consideration at such time as we authorize the closure of this sale.
Mayor, let me just clarify a particular point. You mentioned the litigation. I think Judge Cologne has given 60 days on that for continuation. Did they not, Mrs. Kirby?
That's a different case. He's referring to the Broadhead litigation. so.
Okay, Broadhead, okay.
It was a financial judgment
All right.
out of the Broadhead case that has now been settled by our insurance company.
Good, thank you so much. I appreciate that clarification.
No purchase and procurement. Hiring, we're ready for hiring to municipal service. We have 2 positions recommended for hiring. In the electric department, a groundsman. There was 12 applicants, 7 interviewed. The interview committee was Hadaway, Grantham, Quinn, and Young. Recommend Brad Scarborough for employment. Grade 8, Step 1, $22,192.15, 1 year annually, 1 year probationary period.
I move approved, Mayor.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous. Also in the electric department, a cashier, there were 51 applicants, 8 interviewed. The interview committee was Hadaway, Oakley, Gray, and Young. Starting salary, grade 5, step 1, $16,897.11 annually, 1 year probationary period. Recommend hiring of Margaret McQuarrie.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I believe that includes.
Mayor, I make a motion we go into closed session, determining the need to go into executive session.
Second.
I'll ask that Ms. Outlaw remain to keep the minutes of this closed session.